What is a stereotype? What is a stereotype? A stereotype is when you assume something about somebody, you assume something about a person before you know them. And you assume this thing about that person based on their appearance, their race, their gender, religion, where they live, etc., etc. Today we are going to talk about a controversial subject. We are going to talk about stereotypes here in the US. I think this is going to be an interesting video. So get ready, because it's going to be a long one. So let's get right into the controversy and start with the most controversial stereotypes. Let's talk about race. Okay guys, so talking about race, stereotypes based on race is kind of a taboo subject here in the US. You're not supposed to talk about these things. You're supposed to pretend like everybody's the same and you don't notice what color their skin is, where they're from, how they speak, things like that. But that's not real life, and stereotypes exist. So today I am going to tell you guys some stereotypes about different races here in the US. Good stereotypes, negative stereotypes, and then we're going to talk about if they are true, if they are based on some sort of reality, or if they are just hate, okay? If it's just ignorance, people being ignorant and judging with no factual evidence, okay? Let's start with the race here in the US who perhaps has the most stereotypes, okay? Black Americans. So first, let's explore some of the stereotypes about Black Americans that are not very negative, okay? Not all stereotypes are negative. Some stereotypes are almost positive. An example of this is that a lot of people assume that Black Americans are incredible athletes, okay? That they can all run very fast or jump very high. And I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like a good thing. I want to be athletic. Okay, so it is a stereotype that Black people are more athletic, they run faster, they're great at basketball. But the fact of the matter is that that's simply not true. There are just as many Black people here in the US who are overweight, out of shape, unhealthy, cannot play sports, cannot run, get tired just walking around, okay? There are just as many unhealthy people here in the US who are Black. So not all Black Americans are incredible athletes. However, I will say that we do have some amazing Black athletes here in the US. And I do not know if this is because African Americans, they view sports as a way to get out of poverty. For example, they think, if I get really good at basketball, I could get a scholarship, maybe get a good career playing basketball. That's a chance for me to get out of this bad situation I'm living in. Okay, maybe that's an option. Or perhaps there is something in their genetics that gives them an edge in running or jumping. Another stereotype about Black Americans that is not completely negative is that they all are very good dancers and have musical talents like rapping or singing, dancing, these things. And this is also not true. Back when I was rapping, I heard a lot of Black guys who are not good at all at rap, okay? Who should not be rapping. But another reason why this stereotype is prevalent and why this is a stereotype is because I think music does play a huge part in Black American culture, more so than other American cultures. And obviously there are a lot of Black Americans who love rap music and who have tried to rap or be rappers. That's where this stereotype comes from, but not all of them are good at it. Not all of them are good at it. Okay, now for some negative stereotypes about my Black countrymen and women. One stereotype about Black Americans is that they all speak very improper English. This is called Ebonics. Ebonics is basically a term for Black English, okay? And it basically means speaking with improper grammar, using words that are not actually words. So is this true? Is this true? Do all Black people speak differently than I speak? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, just as there is a huge difference between how a white man down south in America from Tennessee or Arkansas, how he speaks and how I speak, there are going to be some differences between how I speak and how a lot of Black people do speak. That's just cultural differences. But I have also personally met a lot of very well-spoken Black Americans who speak just like me. And I've also heard a lot of white people talking in a way that sounds pretty stupid. So the way that you speak, the way you choose to present yourself, it has to do with how your parents raised you, how you were educated, where you went to school. I don't think it's a race thing. Another negative stereotype about Black Americans. This stereotype is that Black Americans are much more likely than other races to be thieves, to steal things, or to be violent criminals. Now, is this one true? I will give an example of this. I'll tell you guys a little story, and you can make up your own minds about this, and I'll tell you what I think. So I've had two very good friends, almost best friends, who were Black Americans in my life, okay? One was Carl. I made this video with my friend Carl. And another one, we will call him Chris, okay? I used to make rap music with Chris, and we were very close friends, okay? Now Carl is one of the most honorable, kind, honest, amazing people I've ever met, okay? Carl would never steal. Carl doesn't lie. Carl will treat you with respect. Now Chris was a different kind of guy, okay? Chris was not somebody who you could trust. He once told me a story about how he was in an apartment building where he lived, and he went into somebody's apartment and stole their TV. Okay, he walked in and stole their TV. And I said, well, why did you do that? He said their door was open a little bit. So he had to walk in. He had to go in and see if there was anything in there. Okay, so that just shows you that Chris has no character. He is a thief. He will steal from a stranger. But is that because he's Black? I don't think so. Let me tell you the key difference, okay? Carl was raised by a mother and a father who loved him. He grew up reading the Bible, doing sports, doing good in school. And Chris was raised by a drug-addicted mother. He did not have a father. He went to school in Gary, Indiana, a very poor and dangerous place. So Chris grew up in a very hard, crime-ridden place, and Carl grew up with a family who loved him. That's the difference. Now, let me also tell you that yes, Gary, Indiana, where Chris grew up, is almost all Black. It's probably 90-something% Black Americans who live there. And it is a dangerous place. You should not go there. You should not walk around the streets there. It's not a very safe place at all. But I will also tell you that I have been in places that are 100% white, but poor white people, and it feels just as dangerous, okay? So the thing here is poverty. Poverty, drugs, abuse in the homes. These are the things that make criminals, not race. Wonderful people come in all colors. So do terrible ones. All right, now, my friends, time to talk about you guys. Latinos. Let's talk about some Latino stereotypes here in the U.S. So one that is not so negative and maybe could be positive is that all Latinos are very hard workers, trabajadores, okay? They work very, very hard, do tough jobs, never complain about working. Okay, that's a stereotype. And I have seen a lot of wonderful Latino workers in some of the places I've worked. But let me tell you, the slowest worker I know, the laziest guy I know at my job right now is Mexican. So not all Latinos are good workers. Now, a negative stereotype about Latinos here is that all Latinos here in the United States are here illegally without papers, and that's just not true either. That's just not true. I know a lot of honest, hardworking Latinos who came here the right way. They got their visa, they worked on their citizenship. They learned to speak English before they came and did it the hard way, the right way that you're supposed to by law. And on the other hand, I know people who are here without papers, illegally. I spent a lot of time with a family who is here without papers. I would never say anything to possibly identify who they are, but they were some of the most amazing people I've ever met, okay? They welcomed me into their home with open arms, treated me kindly with respect, helped me with my Spanish, taught me about amazing food, and were one of the closest, tightest families that I've ever met. So that is one thing that I have noticed about the Latino people that I really admire. And it's not really a stereotype, but it's something that I have observed, is that you guys are very close with your siblings, with your moms and dads, grandparents, much closer than white Americans or Black Americans. And that's something very positive that I have noticed. So That's something that I admire very much. But I am sure that there's also plenty of people, Latino people, who have terrible relationships with their families. And the whole point of this video is that we should not be judging people based on what they look like. So all Latinos are not here illegally, and not all Latinos are good workers, okay? Just like every other race, there's people who have done things that are not completely legal, and there's people who work hard, and people who are complete, lazy, terrible workers. Just like everybody else. Good people, bad people, all colors. Okay, Asians. Now when I say Asians, I am not only talking about Chinese, Japanese, okay, but Indians as well. People from India. Now there's really not a whole lot of bad stereotypes about Asians. Maybe that they speak English with a strong accent and they never learn English very good. Or I have heard that they are bad drivers, little dumb things like that. But what I think is the biggest stereotype here about Asians is that they all do super good in school. They all go to college and become doctors or things like that, okay? And hey, if that's true, is that such a bad thing? Obviously, it's not true that all Asians are smart. Not all of them are doctors. And funny enough, the Asian person who I have been closest to in my life, he's somebody who I've trained a lot of jiu-jitsu with. Really good guy. He's not a doctor. He works for the Amazon company, making a little bit of money. And the funny thing about him, he's short, but he can slam dunk, boom, a basketball, okay? He can jump so high. So this Asian guy who's supposed to be a doctor, according to stereotypes, he can jump higher than any black person I've ever met. So once again, guys, you can never judge or know what someone's going to be like until you get to know them as a person. Because I would have never assumed by looking at this guy that he can dunk a basketball or that he works at an Amazon factory. Okay? Alright guys, time to go in on my people. Time to talk about white Americans. What are some of the stereotypes about white Americans? Well, some of the stereotypes about white Americans are that white Americans are privileged. Because of their skin color, they could get better jobs. The police do not bother them. They have money. They grow up in nice houses and have more opportunities than all the other races. Now, I'll start by saying I have met some very privileged white people. Some white people whose parents did very well, so now they do not have any idea what it is like to have to work for a living, or they have no idea that there are people in this world who have real problems. People who don't go on nice vacations. And a funny story about are all white people privileged? As soon as I met my friend Chris, who I rapped with, once we started getting close, the first time that he came to my house, he said, "Man, you white, your house is supposed to be nicer than this." He was so surprised that my house is kind of small, you know, not a big nice house. He couldn't believe it. He thought that my house was supposed to be a big nice mansion because I'm white, okay? But my house is just normal, small, you know, not a super nice house. And he was very surprised by that, okay? I think even though Chris was not a good person, honestly, and I don't hang out with him anymore because he did bad stuff that I didn't want to be around, I think I learned a whole lot from him about how black Americans live, and he learned a whole lot from me about white Americans, and we both learned that you can't trust stereotypes all the time. So another stereotype about white people that they put in memes a lot is that white people like to eat boring food without flavor, sabor, okay, without putting spices on it. And I'll only talk for myself, but I'm the best cook I know, and my friends of different races will back me up on that. So this white person can cook. I don't know what other white people are eating around here. And also another thing about are all white people, do they all have money? Are they all privileged? There's one place in America where you can go and see a whole lot of white people with zero privilege, and it is called a trailer park, okay? Go to a place like this and you will see so many white people who don't have anything, okay? And I'm not judging any of those people. I've been in a trailer park before. We all go through hard times in our lives, but there will be a lot of white people there who are criminals, okay, who don't have money and who have no privilege and no opportunities. All right, guys, and the last thing I want to say is that there's a stereotype about young white males, and I was I was profiled by this stereotype, okay? And this story makes me laugh so hard when I think about it, but it's super embarrassing, but I'm going to share it with you guys anyway, okay? So there's something very sad, very tragic that has happened sometimes here in the US, and they're called school shootings, okay? It's when a kid brings a gun to his school, boom, 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 and starts shooting people. Terrible, terrible thing, okay? People have lost family members and lives, and it's just awful. It's awful. But usually, one thing the shooters have in common, they're usually a teenage male, a white male. The last few have been a little bit different, but the classic school shooter is a white male who is a loner. He has no friends. He doesn't talk with anybody. He's very quiet and maybe weird. He wears black clothes, stuff like that. Okay? That's the stereotype of what you would consider a school shooter, okay? Now, when I was in school, I had friends. I had my friends, but I'm kind of a quiet guy. I'm not a very loud talker, you know? I've changed a lot, believe me. I know you guys think, oh, this guy talks all the time. He makes videos on YouTube. But back then, I was a bit shy, and if I was not with my friends, I didn't talk a lot. So one day I was in a class and none of my friends were in there, so I never talked in that class. And I did not bring my pencil to class, so I asked the teacher if I could have a pencil, and the teacher said, no, I don't have one for you. Does anybody in here have a pencil for Mr. Singer? And one girl, she gave me a pencil and she said, okay, I was nice to you, so now when you bring a gun to school and kill everybody, don't kill me. That really hurt my feelings because I was a nice guy. I was just a little bit shy. I told that story a little while ago to somebody, and I was crying laughing because it was so crazy to hear somebody judge me like that because I was a little bit quiet. I was a nice kid. I was just shy and I don't know, probably scared to talk to the girls. Alright guys, moral of this video, don't judge people by their outside appearance. Some of the most wonderful experiences I've had in my life are when I've opened up and been open to making a new friendship, relationship with somebody of a different culture or race. I've learned a whole lot about the world, a lot about life from people who are completely different from myself. So keep an open mind, keep some open eyes, keep on learning English. Les quiero un montón. Muchísimas gracias por ver. Nos vemos pronto.